Hi guys, so today I am infilling my nails and I have shortened them. So I think this is maybe my second or third infill and I'm actually doing really well. They've grown, they're doing nice and long. But honestly, I am so used to short stubby nails that I'm stabbing myself left, right and centre and I'm catching myself and I'm finding them awkward, and honestly by most people's standards they're probably pretty short, especially the ones that wear nails regularly, but definitely a bit much for me, so I'm shortening them down. So this is sped up, and as you can see I've already done my left hand off camera because I can generally be a little messy with, so I've done my right hand off camera because obviously I'm right-handed, so when I'm using my left hand I am fairly slapdash and messy. So I'm just going to file this right down because I just need a thin layer, and then I'm going to make a glitter sandwich. So the idea for these nails I actually got from Dorota Peleka on a recent video she did. She added a French manicure to hers, but with mine being shorter I haven't, but I loved the idea of using the flakes. And I'm kind of sad because honestly it does not show the sparkle on video the way it does in the sun. So I'm using the new Sculpt Pro and the new base by the Nail Lab UK. So I have dotted a bit of the new base on each nail and I am just going in and scrubbing that. So I've done the rest of my prep off camera. I have etched the nail, wiped it off with the prep, and then I am just going to rub that in. So when you've rubbed that in properly, if you have etched the nail, then it will not be a completely smooth nail once you have the base on. There will still be little lumps and stuff, and that's where the base has soaked into all those little grooves. If when using gel polish you want a smoother layer, you can scrub it in the way I have and then you just run a little more over the top to even it out, but because I'm going over with the hard gel anyway it doesn't really matter after this. And I am putting on a thin layer of Naked, which is the nude shade I have been wearing and absolutely love. I don't know if you can hear it on camera, so I apologise if you do, but Marvel is sat on me making biscuits while I am voiceovering and she is pairing up a storm, and half the time she sounds like a bloody tractor. So I'm just brushing on a really thin layer of the Naked hard gel, and this is just to give me a really thin masking layer for where I've infilled in some places and completely removed on other nails. And once it's cured I'm going to use that as a sticky layer for my flakes. Because it's only a thin layer and it's not going to go anywhere, I am doing all 5 nails in one go. But if you have a runny gel you can do a couple or one at a time. I did think about trying this in acrylic since it is a while since I picked up my acrylic brush, but I'm not sure if the flakes would survive or melt because I'm not sure I've ever actually put them in acrylic. I have some different flaky types, like flaky glitter, which is similar, but these are just like wispy. I mean, every time I breathed too hard the bloody pots exploded everywhere. So I've cured that. Off you pop. And I'm just putting a bit of the clear onto a palette. And this is because I'm going to be dipping in and out. And ideally, if you are going to do glitter and use hard gel, you want a hard gel pot you are just using for your glitter. Because I have ended up with flaky bits in mine and I scrubbed that brush really well. So I have cured that hard gel layer, and now it's got a sticky layer on it. And I have 4 different pots of, you know, like the flakies, like the things that end up all over your house, and if you sneeze you've lost an entire pot. I have them in a bunch of different colours. This is just an old set of 4 I got from Kylie Awary a couple of years ago. And I'm just dotting those in. So when Dorota did this, she picked 2 shades and she kind of ombre'd them from one to the other. And it looked really, really nice. I decided, however, to go kind of full on in your face. And I am just patting random ones in random places. I did actually clean my brush for this first time, and then I just gave up and just started patting. But basically, I just pat those suckers right into that sticky layer, work them all into the little creases and make sure they are stuck. They kind of settle really, really flat and really, really nicely. I never actually thought of using them before, as I said, but it's a great way to get a really, really shiny glitter layer, which is actually super thin, because really there is nothing to these flakies whatsoever. I mean, they're like as thin as a piece of cling film, for goodness sakes. So once I've patted those in, I'm using the gel I've obviously decanted onto my palette, and I am just putting a layer over the top. So this is just going to seal all those flakes in. So I'm putting a really thin layer on. And obviously the reason I've put the gel on my palette to use is because as I am wiping this over the top, it is pulling off loose bits of the flakes and mixing them in with the gel on my brush. So if I had have done this from a pot, it'd have all been in there. So I've cured that. And then just to make sure that I've got no bits that I've missed and no little spaces, the tacky layer from that very thin layer, I am going back in on all of the nails and doing another layer, just filling in any missing gaps. Right, I keep getting interrupted and now I've lost my train of thought. So, second layer, just to make sure it is extra thick and full. If you wanted to encapsulate anything as well, like flowers or decals or anything, you could do that now instead of putting the second layer of glitter on, because then you'd have the shine from the original layer and then your details and then your top layer of gel, and then your sandwich wouldn't be so thick. So I'm just going over with another layer to seal that in, or at least make sure it's all staying where I've put it. And then I will go over with my proper layers. Do the sensible thing, and when doing your proper layer, after decanting like this, switch to a separate brush. I scrubbed this clean. I was really, really thorough. And yet I still have teeny tiny particles in a brand new pot of gel that I only just opened to do this set of nails. So I'm going to have to order a completely another set of that gel just to do plain no glittery ones. So I've just put a thin layer on because, as you know, gel likes to move with gel. They attract each other. And then I've just put a bigger blob of gel on to give me my structure. Now, it does not need to be a big structure or a big apex or anything like that, because these are my natural nails. So there isn't like a stress point for a tip or anything like that. And I'm just working that in, moving that where I want it, unfortunately completely out of camera. And then I'm just flipping it over to make sure I've got that lovely little apex in the middle. Now, even though these are on very, very shortened natural nails, mine are still admittedly a little chunky, but that is personal preference on my part. because I also work in a kitchen and I can be very, very rough with my hands, I most definitely am that nail tech that tells everybody to use cuticle oil, not use your nail as tools, and then does the exact opposite. I rarely remember to cuticle oil, and I most definitely use my nails as tools. So I like the added thickness just to kind of cover my own backside for the ill treatment of my nails. Other given that these ones are so cute and sparkly, I may actually take better care of them. So where I need to, I'm just using a fine liner to pull that out to the edges. And they have all had their next layers on, all had their apex. And now I'm just going in with some gel cleanser. And then we're just going to give them a file. Now, what I love about this gel is it self-levels beautifully. There is next to no filing whatsoever. It looks like I do a lot of filing on these. But because it doesn't really need it, I'm actually using quite an old half blunt file just to kind of smooth it over. And just to get in those little nooks where I've left it a little long and it's sunk in at my cuticles a bit. But otherwise, honestly, it self-levels pretty perfect. I will admit though that the naked shade, the pinky shade that I was wearing beforehand, I did find that easier to apply. But I honestly think that was because it was a colour and I could see it, whereas the clear is like really, really clear. So I kind of found it harder to judge, as silly as it might sound, how much was on the nail and, you know, when I was moving it. I think it is actually much easier to see with a colour gel. I don't know if I'm the only one that feels that way. But yeah, I am enjoying using the gels though. I mean, I done, apart from the acrylic set the other week on my daughter, I don't remember the last time I really played with them. And it's a shame because I quite literally have probably well over 100 coloured acrylics from CJP. Glittery ones, beautiful ones. I might see about getting some out for a couple of videos. Because I really was an acrylic girly at one point. Struggled with the marbling. Ombre was a dream. And I just really enjoyed 3D flowering and playing with them. But I have always found gel to be much easier to file and work with. Because even though I have a good couple of years experience and being fully qualified and everything, I still sometimes struggled with my bead ratio with acrylic. And I sometimes I'd struggle to work with it. So I'm going over, I switched my big buffer to a block buffer. And as you know, I like to use my buffers for around the cuticles and side walls, because you can tuck that right in there and it doesn't have the sharp edges of a file. It's soft and squishy, so it moves around with your cuticle and you can still make sure those lines are blended in really, really beautifully down those sides. Now that one, I'm just filing down the barrel, and that is because that little sucker ended up being a lot thicker on the end than I thought it was. So I'm going back over with some gel cleanse and I'm digging right in those little grooves with my nail look, just to make sure there's no hidden little powders that are going to contaminate the top coat or just look kind of messy after I've done. And to be fair, those look kind of awesome matte as well. Yeah, definitely like those. I'll tell you what I do notice though, so with the different layering of the flakes, sometimes in some places, you know, they were a little bumpy before I went in with the gel. And it's stayed that way looking through the gel. It looks like it's uneven. But when you feel the gel surface is even. It's perfectly filed, but it's the different depths of the flakes underneath, which I find kind of interesting. Almost like the nuanced nails that you see for the Japanese and the Korean nail artists. And looky at that sparkle. Kind of sad because in sunlight and in real light it sparkles so much better. I have taken maybe 5 or 6 videos for TikTok and Instagram, standing in different lights, different times of the day, because I filmed this last night. Standing in the kitchen, standing outside, standing in the living room, sitting driving the car and looking at my nails. And everywhere is a different shine, but I'll be damned if I can catch it properly in all the different colours on the bloody camera. So we're just going in with the top coat. This one is a nice thin top coat, but I do find it can run sometimes if I'm not careful. I generally like, personal preference entirely, I prefer the thicker top coats, but that's just me. So thank you all for watching, guys. Check out Dorota's video on the original. She has a lot of tips and tricks, and she does a French on hers, and it looks beautiful. If you have enjoyed, please leave me a like, and if you haven't already, please subscribe and give this a try. It looks absolutely unreal in the sparkle department, and it's kind of easy to do. If you do not have hard gel, you could also do this with a base coat. A base coat, tap it into the base coat, do another layer, tap it in again, a final maybe layer of base coat to seal it, and then top coat. So you do not need hard gel to do this. You could do this with gel polish, you could do this with builder gel, you could do this with rubber base gels. You could probably even do it with acrylic, I've just not tried that. But this one is definitely one you can use with most systems, so even if you're not hard gel trained, you can kick these suckers out of the park with gel polish. Definitely give them a try. And I'm just popping on my favourite Neba cuticle oil there. Absolutely beautiful. I think I have about 3 bottles of this one. And then I always leave it for a minute and then just wipe it off the nail to kind of stop the nail being foggy and greasy looking. But thank you for watching, guys. Really, really hope you give it a try. And if you do and you are on social media, give me a tag because I would love to see how they turn out. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.